This podcast is made possible by Avalara and Ledge.
Hi, it's Ben Chernellik, President and CFO at Symphony. You are listening to the CFO Thought Leader Podcast.
This is episode 994.
The last 9 months there have been incredible focus on customer journey within the organization. How do we make sure we're partnering better in terms of providing more resources to the customer and partnering with them such that, customer kind of view Menlo as a default choice for them when they think of security. And not only that, as we sort of come up with additional products, they feel more comfortable partnering and buying it from Menlo versus any other sort of competition there because of the awesome experience they had. And this is where, even when I look in the last 9 months, we're kind of really proud of sort of like our customer retention metrics and the customer expansion metrics that we have had in the last couple of quarters. They have been incredibly strong there. So.
Hi, it's Jack. On today's show, we speak with Naresh Bansal, CFO of Menlo Security. Ask any CFO about their career building years, and they'll likely attribute their success in part to their adaptability and their ability to render strategic insight. This tendency was recently amplified for us when we heard about the experience of Naresh Bansal, a seasoned finance executive who during a pivotal chapter in his early career discovered his company was about to be acquired by a much larger one. Once acquired, the company's trajectory changed, and Bansal began to face a new set of challenges. You'll hear that story and much more on today's episode. We'll begin after this.
This episode is presented by Avalara. That's the sound of not worrying about sales tax compliance. Because when you automate it with Avalara, you don't have to worry about collecting sales tax or tracking who and what is tax exempt. With Avalara, you don't even have to worry about new tax laws and regulations. Avalara does it for you. If your business sells internationally, Avalara has you covered with cross-border tax compliance solutions. And when it comes time to file tax returns, Avalara automatically takes care of that too, giving you one less thing to worry about. Avalara has managed billions of sales for small, mid-size, and enterprise businesses, and seamlessly works with your current sales, e-commerce, and accounting platforms. Take the worry out of tax compliance with Avalara. Learn more at avalara.com. That's AVALARA.com.
Hello, we're speaking with Naresh Bansal, CFO of Menlo Security. Naresh, welcome.
Thank you very much, Jack. I'm glad to be here. Delighted to be here.
So, as we always do, Naresh, we're going to ask you to look back for us, and we're looking for those experiences that you feel really prepared you to become a finance leader. What would those be for you?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I'm going to say I had a little bit of a different journey than probably most because most of the, US CFOs, I started my journey back in India and obviously, spent quite a good amount of time in public accounting. And even before that, I'm going to say, I feel like I even look back at my school days and saying, okay, one of my math teachers, she was an incredible influence on us. And really, how he sort of crystallized sort of the love of numbers for me was because he would just simplify the most complex puzzles for us in such a simple way that's sort of like, oh my gosh, okay, this is not as difficult as we thought it is, right? And that really helped me sort of when I think about sort of my finance journey is it's all about, yes, you can take a complex issue or complex challenge and how do you simplify it? And sort of as I look at my journey when I got to public accounting, I mean, so obviously I had most of my public accounting experience in India. I did my CA there and the life in sort of India was quite a bit different than after I moved to the US. It's complete. I felt like a little bit day and night. The numbers or the accounting concepts were the same, but it's just generally sort of like how the type of the businesses we dealt with kind of more like in my part of the world, I was dealing with more pharmaceutical businesses and really very different than tech businesses that I've been handling now for the last 30 years based in the Bay Area here. So it's been quite a contrast there. So even sort of what I felt like what prepared is the numbers is numbers, right? End of the day, it's how you understand, how do you conceptualize that, how do you sort of crystallize it for everybody else, right? So working in public accounting, I'm sure, we all have kind of gone through those days, but I thought those kind of prepared you where you were kind of dealing with not one subset of business, but you're sort of different, on any given day, you could be handling a pharma business or a technology business or financial services business there. So, working at actually personally for me, working at a smaller firm really was sort of key to me. My success is really because, when you go to sometimes larger businesses or larger firms, you get specialized into a certain vertical there, right? So being working at a smaller firm, I felt like, we were thrown into whatever the business that the company had, right? So it's not like, we had only one vertical that we absolutely focused on. So it could be, for the whole duration of my time, I don't know how many different sort of verticals we kind of dealt with. There was no even concept of vertical we taught at that time back in sort of early sort of late 90s or early 90s. There was like, okay, well, these are the clients we have. These are the businesses we're going to audit there or kind of partner with there. So.
I enjoyed the story you were sharing there. Was that a math teacher who used to sort of illustrate the problem for you in such a way that you could, come up with
Yeah, I think this is where, every time I look back, I'm going to say, I think of sort of what was the key turning point, how I got into finance. Actually, I always think of that aha moment saying, okay, I think that the teacher had such a massive influence because, I don't claim to be the best student, but actually math was one of my sort of, partly because of him, I would be perfect in every math sort of test and everything, right? So, and back at that time, sometimes we taught him as a pain because every free time he would get, kids, we want to go play, and he would come to the class and say, okay, let me help you guys with this solve problem or something like that. But now we look back and saying how he was a sort of game changer for us, really. He would not only spend the time, but also it's just, he had this unique ability to take the most complex issue and just simplify it for us, really. And where, as a kids, where you feel like, oh, you got it. Okay, it's not like you had to go home and kind of study a lot to just understand the issue, but you kind of got the issue right. And he would take the time and just making sure, follow through on the questions, just make sure that we got the concepts right.
And that's for obvious reasons, I'm drawing us back to that because I think that's a great parallel with often how finance leaders lead today.
Absolutely. I feel like the same values apply now today as I think about sort of the same values apply as a role for CFO is how to crystallize these issues and how do I simplify, the most complex issues that we're dealing with but not only for my own team, but also for the leadership team and for the board as well. How do I sort of make sure that they understand these issues that we're dealing with in a sort of very simple and understandable way there?
When you come to the States, what's the role? What are you stepping into? What was the opportunity that brought you here?
Yeah, for me, it was, I had an opportunity I had my family here. So one of my brothers was already here. So he had sort of applied my visa here. And when I got my visa, initially I was very reluctant to come. But then he convinced me, he said, give yourself 2 years. If you don't make it in 2 years, you can always go back, use it as a learning experience, right?
What were you experiencing? Why weren't you so excited and you had some apprehension?
Yeah. So think of Jack as, you've done well in your career. You worked hard through school. You got through your CPA, CA equivalent in India. Now you're in a sort of leadership role in a company here. And then you come to a new world here and nobody even recognizes that you are a CPA. Literally my first job that I started working here was a simple accountant, right? So even though I had a CPA, but really, I'm sure I'm talking about back in 94 where, I'm sure nowadays it's much more transparency. People across the globe have CPAs and all of that, but nobody at that time sort of, gave me any credit for what I've done there. So it's like literally I had to kind of start from scratch. And fortunately, after coming here within sort of 9 months, I was able to get my CPA and CMA done. So that really helped me sort of set us sort of for the journey ahead there.
So you got a CMA certification rather quickly as well.
Yeah, it's through one of the institutes that we have. I'm going to say, obviously, my first goal was to get a CPA done. After I had my, within kind of 6 or 7 months of coming here, I was able to get all the CPA papers done. And then I was looking for what more can I do that will sort of enhance my knowledge and sort of solidify my sort of, career aspirations of sort of, I'm not looking to be sort of another accountant. And hopefully I can do more. And one of the friends who suggested, he said, if you want to go into the management role versus just pure finance or accounting role, then CMA would be helpful sort of, because that's a certified management accountant where it'll kind of bridge the gap between just from a pure CPA to kind of also kind of more helping you with the management accounting aspect of that. So that's why I said, okay, well, that seemed like interesting. I'll just go ahead and do it.
And did that allow you to network more too outside of work?
Yeah. I think in the early years, I definitely felt having that additional value proposition to provide to the potential employers was a huge benefit there, right? And also, got a chance to know a lot of other folks as well, like you said, networking. I'm gonna say, I felt like in the first sort of 5 to 7 years, that was definitely helpful of having an additional credential than just a CPA, but also having a CMA sort of solidified my own personal credentials sort of as I kind of moved into sort of the more management role, shortly thereafter there.
Yeah. What are you thinking about as you look for new roles and new opportunities? Is it strictly a finance path that you're on and you're content with that, and you can look into the future and understand what the ladder you'd like to climb is? Is it all visible to you?
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear to me. I'm going to say when I think about sort of two things, I would say parsed out sort of. I think if I understand your question, I'm going to say I look at what am I looking in a company, and the second one is what is it looking for me as a personal, right? So as a sort of path for me, when I think about any company, I always kind of think of as a kind of three-legged stool. I mean, so the first and the foremost is sort of for me is the people that I'm going to be working with, the team that I'm going to be working with, right? So we have limited amount of time. We want to make sure we're enjoying in what we're doing and absolutely, fun working with the people. And being I feel like being in the Bay Area or sort of technology focused area, we're always kind of looking, we have a little bit different sort of lens. We're always looking for the transformational technologies, right? So it's not just I can go this thing, do 20% faster versus, hey, I can make this radically different. This could be 10x better than whatever incumbent we're trying to replace there. So is it a transformational technology that has potential to become a much bigger sort of multi-billion-dollar sort of franchise there, right? And the third thing I always say is, well, you can have the great people, great technologies, but is there solid backing or funding behind that to enable the people and the technology to be successful, right? And if these three things are there, to me, that's a great sort of value proposition for me to join there. The second part of the question I think of personally is really how I can help the organization. I mean, I feel like now having held a sort of I kind of came to the CFO role through a typical sort of controllership journey where you have more sort of accounting kind of background, but over the years, kind of you have built a more strategic lens. But beyond that, I mean, how can I help an organization, right? So yes, I understand the numbers. I can kind of crystallize the numbers, but how do I sort of play a much more broader role in the success of an organization? And fortunately, like in the last couple of roles I had, I've been able to play kind of much wider role, and sometimes in managing IT, managing sort of HR or other sort of parts of the businesses there, managing some of the global businesses as a sort of manager for that sort of businesses there, or helping kind of scale in a kind of more global way there.
I always like to just mention when a finance leader on the way up makes an investment of years with different companies, and there's a stretch of time, it's almost 10 years, when you look at the company you joined and built your career there for 6 years, and then it's acquired by Sage,
right?
And you remain there for another 4 years at a VP of finance level, I believe.
Right.
So like altogether, 10-year investment there. Can you tell us something about that? Was it satisfying? You look back now, are you happy with that chapter, the way things unfolded? It looks like it was very positive and gave you steady growth career-wise.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, Jack, when I look back at that experience, yes, from somebody from an outside may look like 10 years at one place, but I felt like, like I said, we were having a great time. In my first years, it was all about sort of, ACPAC was a company that was spun off from Computer Associates. When early days of CA, they wanted to prove to the street they got hidden jewels within the larger CA umbrella, and they wanted to take some of the jewels kind of public, such that the sum of the parts is bigger than the overall pie, right? Let's put it that way. And And ACPAC was the first company they had identified. And imagine sort of joining a company where, which used to be a division, now we're trying to take it public. And so it was quite an arduous effort for the first 2 years, sort of just to kind of build the general ledger, build the financial statements, get them audited by, I think we had E&Y as our auditors at that time, and not them get them audited, but also then sort of start working on an S1 and sort of getting through all the IPO filings. And so after not the first try, so, I always jokingly say I got double the experience in the same company because, we were on the road shows when the CA decided to pull the IPO, and then, the markets were not in the most sort of, generous mood at that time there. So about a year and a half later, we tried again, and then, we had a pretty successful IPO. So really, so I felt like my journey sort of, then running as a sort of public company for 2 years, and then eventually kind of selling it to Sage. So it's been every year felt like a very different. The first few years was really focused on, we were growing internationally, we were making some acquisitions, how do we integrate all of those acquisitions into ACPAC business, and then sort of eventually running a kind of public company. Then as we sort of sold the company to Sage, the role actually, I felt like it dramatically kind of shifted, where now we're not a sort of growth kind of focused startup company trying to go public or been public, but now we're part of a much larger organization now. So you kind of get a different experience. So a lot of the finance leaders, sometimes they pick their career path saying, okay, I'm going to work for a startup environment or a much larger company. So I felt like I got a unique lens from both of them. I mean, say at ACPAC, it was all about growth. All growth mattered there. How you think about the capital allocation, how you think about everything else. It was all with the lens of sort of growth, right? And once we got acquired by Sage, they're a very mature public company, which was part of the London, even the FTSE 100, which is equivalent to NASDAQ 100 there. And for them, growth was important, but also, the return to the shareholders was equally important. So you have a very different lens from literally kind of, for me, that lens got shifted overnight, literally. So you're going from a growth focused company to sort of focusing the bottom line, of focusing on the growth and the bottom line all at the same time. I felt like that prepared me well for the post sort of COVID era with all the changes we have been kind of going through. So it was different kind of where I think that's kind of when I look at my journey for 10 years, sort of managing from a $200 million company to almost $1 billion sort of divisions, kind of what I was managing at that time. So much larger businesses there, as part of the Sage. So really 10 years, but every 2 years, I felt like it was a very different journey for me, a very different experience for me personally.
When I look at that, when a company is acquired and the executive stays on and actually takes on more responsibility in the larger entity, it reminds me though of your first chapter when you kind of land in the States and you have to sort of you got to demonstrate or reveal to others all of what you know and already have experience in. Similar to when a company is acquired, are they absolutely certain you're the one who can continue to build your career in this larger space? Or are you one of the executives we leave behind?
You're spot on, Jack. It's anytime you sell a company, once the Rofia of sort of selling the company, having a good outcome kind of dies down, then the practical reality hits, right? So even in our case, when we sold the company, almost 80% of the leadership team was gone in kind of the first sort of 6 months there, right? And then it's sort of, for me, it was kind of challenging how you were sort of bridge the gap between the sort of, let's call it the old leadership team and the new leadership team there, right? And how do I have the vote of confidence of even the new leadership team that I have the best interest of the new company and I'm working to kind of for the success of the company, but at the same time have that legacy knowledge and experience and sort of the business really to bring and help them up to speed with the businesses there, right? So, it was definitely a challenge, but I felt like, I was fortunate enough to work with some of the people even after at the Sage who were very, very sort of supportive of sort of helping me understand the Sage culture as well, because it's also mixing the two cultures together, right? So that sort of really helped, me through the journey there.
As someone who really came up the controller ranks, were you ever at risk? And I don't know if it's that acquisition, but I mean, are they going to just think maybe, okay, is he just an accountant or is he someone who's, broader and can apply his financial analysis to some of these challenges we're facing? And, how did you make certain they understood the breadth of what you could come with?
Yeah, I think kind of from early on, I mean, so like I think I the maybe a bit of a silly example, but of the math teacher, how he crystallized and simplified the issue. For I've always had this sort of notion of sort of yes, you need to have a deep understanding of the accounting issues. You need to have understanding of all the numbers, the complex issues. But ultimately, when I'm talking to the people who are outside the let's call it the finance team or the numbers, sort of, how do I make it sort of such that I'm not talking a foreign language to them? I want to be able to sort of talk the language that they can understand and simplify to them. But at the same time, I want to be able to educate them on even if like sometimes you're trying to educate the salespeople about the rev rec rules and things like that. Why this deal is you need to structure it some way, or just simple example could be that, right? Is how do I make sure that I'm educating them in a way that they can easily understand that? So I think that really helped me. And we like even the Sage business. I mean, say one of the things that was interesting for me is even after sort of we got acquired, it was quite a bit of vote of confidence for us, really, as how efficiently they saw the new management or the new leadership team of Sage, how the ACPAC business was run efficiently, such that even when they acquired additional companies, instead of merging into the parent Sage, they actually merged into the ACPAC business, such that sort of the business that we were managing kind of kept, grew from literally, a couple of $100 million to almost $1 billion division there for them.
Oh, over that period. Wow.
Yes.
When it is time to move to the next opportunity, what are you looking for at that place in time? Is it the possibility of, and are you thinking of the CFO office? Is it in, could be in my future? Or is that what you're thinking at that point? Or, and I know you had another rung or two to go before you got there, but when you do leave, what are you looking for?
Yeah, so I think I kind of, like I said earlier, the three-legged stool, the question like I answered, but I think even beyond that, I always have been sort of early on, even when after I left Sage, I was pretty clear the role that I want to get to was sort of ultimately I had definitely want to be in a kind of CFO seat and sort of be in the leadership role where I want to be able to help the business sort of, how can I partner with the business? How can I partner with the right leadership team in terms of being able to help them scale and grow the business there, right? After Sage, I had a short stint with the sort of a company that really invented the NPS score, which is today the SAT metrics, and clearly, after that, had a incredible opportunity to kind of partner with some of the other sort of great security businesses from there on.
Okay. I'm looking then, I want to just understand your development in terms of your communication skills. And I think it's interesting. You really began with a communication story, again, going back to the teacher. But as far as being invited to present to senior management or perhaps the board, or when you had that first opportunity where your CFO tapped you on the shoulder and said, I need you there tomorrow. Here's what we'd like you to talk about. Can you share with us how that happened, or as you look back, there might have been a half dozen instances that come to mind?
Yeah. So before I kind of even stepped into the CFO role, I've been very fortunate to work with some really awesome folks there who really kind of helped me sort of like. First time I was presenting to the board, the first time, my advice from CFO was, well, look, I understand the numbers, I understand everything. Just take it easy. Just make sure. Don't try to rattle off the numbers, try to show off that all the numbers, try to just make sure it's a good sort of Q&A session where you're trying to be helping them through this journey of understanding the numbers better, right? So and I felt like I took that advice to the heart, and to this day sort of I always kind of think about, yes, and say we need to talk about our part, we need to help them understand the kind of financial aspects of the number, but how do I make sure that I'm following their lead to some extent and making sure they understand the numbers. We don't want to be, so this is kind of where working with some of the kind of great coaching and mentoring that I got early on kind of really helped me there.
Well, you have had a number of CFO appointments today. Before we start talking about Menlo Security, I just was curious, is it a recruiter who ultimately helps you find the doorway in? Is it relationships as you move from these different opportunities?
I think it's a mix of relationships and recruiting opportunities there. So like early on, like even when I joined Zscaler, it was a recruiter who was really a good friend of mine. He introduced me to the CEO and said, well, look, I'm not a recruiter hired by them, but I'll make an introduction And as sort of the CEO and I, we got to know each other, and for the couple of months we had sort of a little bit back and forth, and we realized, okay, well, this is a great fit for both of us, really, and that's sort of like, so it's a mix of sort of, I would call it, relationship and sort of the recruiting help there.
And in the past, you've sold companies to PE firms and these types of transactions, all the type we would expect to have in the fast growth space, I suppose. Or would you characterize it differently?
Yeah, no, I have. Let me say, one of the companies Actians that I joined, and we joined this company back in 2016, and really the idea was this was an incredible kind of growth story where the company was growing rapidly, and then we were kind of the hope was sort of, we could have a good sort of successful IPO in the next couple of years, and as we were growing rapidly, there was a pretty strong interest, and so the board decided to entertain some of the options. You always have an option A and option B, and so we were kind of open to both. And as we had such a strong interest, and so we had one of the PE firms that was interested, or actually a couple of PE firms that were interested, and so we decided to partner with one of the PE firms and sell the businesses to them. So.
And again, that type of transaction, does it introduce you to the world of PE? You had some exposure to it before, but I would imagine that's where you're having quite a few meetings.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I'm gonna say one of the PE businesses. I'm gonna say it's mostly my experience has been sort of focused on sort of the venture backed or large public companies. There, this was my after we sold the business to the private equity firm, that was my first experience kind of working with private equity. And Jack, I'm gonna say I feel like all the experiences are maybe different, but they're all sort of learning experiences, right? So I felt like the focus on the venture business was all about sort of growth, how about value creation, right? The value creation in terms of sort of growth, right? And after we kind of sold the PE, got a kind of a chance to sort of work with a lot of the PE partners. I'm gonna say it was all about value creation, but in a different sense there, right? It was all about sort of how do we make sure that we have a profitable growth. Like I felt like my experience of sort of selling from ACPAC to Sage was sort of the same sort of shift from a growth to sort of more value based. So this is where even when we sold the business to sort of the private equity there, it was more about sort of a shift from sort of highly only focused on growth to kind of growth versus value there, right? So it's a different sort of shift there, and we were fortunate that the private equity firm that we were working with, as much as they were very actively involved in the business, but they were like, okay, we understand things to happen. I mean, say as long as this is what our overarching objective is, as long as you sort of help us get there, that's all we care about. And tell us when we need to step in and help you with any of those, versus sort of we coming and telling you what to do. So that has been sort of my journey, kind of with, especially like even at Menlo, Vista has been, a partner with us, and this is my sort of the first time I've been so deeply kind of working with sort of more, even this is sort of Vista Growth Fund that invested. I've really enjoyed kind of really, this is where it's a very strong partnership where they're always willing and to help us in saying, okay, well, tell us what help you need, and we will find the resources, we'll find the value proposition, and we'll get you the help, right? But we're not going to come and tell you exactly how to run the business there.
Well, Naresh, we might have a few more career-related questions for you a little later in the podcast, but right now, let's find out about Menlo Security. What is this company about today, and what are its offerings?
Absolutely. So Menlo Security, our goal is to how do we secure enterprise browsers and stop all the phishing, malware, and other highly evasive adaptive threats there. So the way we think of it is the Menlo Secure Enterprise Browser helps you in three different aspects. It helps you manage the browser, it helps you protect your users, and helps you get a secure access to your applications and enterprise data, providing you zero trust access from any browser. Menlo's unique story is that we're agnostic about which browser you want to use. Whether you want to use Chrome or Edge, we can help you secure any of these browsers. We're not coming to the market and saying, oh, we have this secure Menlo browser that you have to use. You have to ditch any of the existing browsers. We're saying is we're going to enable you to be successful within the existing framework, but still provide you all of these sort of extra sort of secure capabilities. So, Jack, when you think about it today, everybody, 75% of the time we're all spending on the browsers, right, on our workday. I mean, other than I jokingly say Zoom and browser is my 100% of the usage there, right? So, So 75% of the time is being spent on a browser. So browser is the least protected attack surface in most organizations today. So that is why that has become the primary point of entry for cyber criminals to launch their attacks. In just the last 6 months alone, there's a 200% increase in the browser-based phishing attacks. So this is where Menlo comes in, and we help you block all those threats and provide a secure browsing experience, regardless of which browser your employees or the corporation you want to choose to use. So when think about sort of Menlo today, so we protect over 8 million active daily users today, and with over 400 billion web sessions each year globally there. So, we have over, a lot of we have some of the largest sort of financial services institutions, large governmental organizations, even like Department of Defense so today relies upon Menlo for securing their users there. When you think about Department of Defense includes the U.S. Army, Navy, all the bigger branches of sort of security. So everybody, all the users rely upon Menlo to kind of secure their users today.
Is it largely large enterprise customers then, or do you also serve mid-market accounts widely?
Yeah, so we do serve mid-market, but we have most of our customers are large enterprises when we talk about sort of across all verticals, whether it's financial services, government, and sort of, every vertical we have sort of but it's mostly large enterprises. We do have small businesses, or not small business, but sort of more medium-sized businesses as well, our customers there.
Could you give us perhaps a abbreviated history of its capital structure?
Yeah, so Menlo has been around for about 10 years now. And so obviously it was started by Amir and Purnima, who were the founders of the company. And so over the years, the company have had tremendous success and growth. And, when we think about the capital structure, so, we have had, early on, we had JP Morgan Chase, HSBC, and some of the other sort of leading institutions kind of being the backers of the company. And so we raised our last round about 4 years ago in 2020. And so Vista came in, and they have been sort of awesome partner to us for the last 4 years there. So, again, we're focused on sort of the growth.
When you arrive, and again, I think it's about 6 months ago, is that right?
Yes.
What is the immediate order of business for you? And again, I guess we're past the first 100 days. We're into the second or the third 100 days. What would you tell us? What, the months that are behind you, what were you hoping to accomplish?
Yeah, I think the big focus for us that had changed is really in the past. I mean, so the company have just, the focus was how do we sort of grow, right? So, which is typical of all the sort of the kind of early stage kind of startup companies there, right? So we have got to the company as a very mature, kind of very kind of scaled business there, So now the point kind of where we were kind of the what management team and the board were looking for was sort of bringing in leadership that can help you sort of. I think what I've said is earlier is like growth versus sort of you still want to grow, but we want to make sure we're also focused on not only just the top line, but also the bottom line as well, right? So we wanted to sort of, so I think of kind of the last 9 months sort of have been incredible focus on how do I kind of continue to kind of partner with our go-to-market team and continue to kind of have to focus on the growth, but also at the same time work across all the businesses there, all the rest of the business, and making sure that we're really conscious about sort of our goal to become sort of, a long-lasting sort of successful company where how we have focused on the top line as well as the bottom line of the company as well. And we've been pretty incredible successful in the last sort of 9 months. I've seen a huge pivot in sort of, even just the success of the company in terms of sort of, not only in terms of top line growth, but also sort of incredible focus we have across all the leadership team and sort of helping manage our cost better.
Now, this is I imagine it's a SaaS offering, and therefore it's the unit economics that we're familiar with, the renewable revenues you're watching closely, lifetime customer value.
Absolutely.
When you mentioned go-to-market, though, and your participation with the collaboration that takes place in trying to understand the go-to-market strategy, anything you have sought to help raise the profile of in terms of helping everyone who's involved in go-to-market understand here might be here's our tripwire,
right,
or whatever
right.
it might be.
Yeah, I think the big focus had been for us is really, we have been, we have incredible field organization. and marketing organization, how do we make sure we partner with them and really bring a focus on metrics for them? And for example, when I think about the sales, we want to make sure, we have all the sales team that is highly sort of productive and successful, because a sales rep is only making money when he makes a sale, right? Or not only that, but sort of other than he gets his commission, right? So how do we make sure across all the sort of sales team they're being successful there, right? And on the back end, when we're looking at our sort of cost to acquire a new customer, when we're partnering with marketing, how are we thinking about sort of all these investments we're doing in the marketing programs? How are we getting the right outcome? Which are the programs that are yielding us the best results? So how do we double down on those investments? And at the same time, we're constantly measuring the success of these programs and looking at our sort of which are the sources that are giving us the best outcome there. So it has been a strong partnership when I said about the go-to-market teams, with kind of just understanding of these deep understanding of these metrics and just looking at a more granular level and also finding these kind of nuggets where we can kind of double down on, which are the areas or the green shoots where we call them, sort of where we can kind of double down our investments on. So.
And where would that be? We're always looking to get more specific with you.
I feel like in a SaaS business, I always say, the most important metric is, what we call it land and expand. It's land, expand, and retain, if I call it that way, right? So it is incredible in enterprises. In enterprise market, it's hard to win a large account because it's a transformational journey that they have to go through, right? So, but once you have that account, how do you make sure you have a very extremely high retention rate, and then how do you sort of provide more better resources to the customer, or in terms of being able to expand to them, or offerings to them, such that even if you land in a small way, how do you keep expanding on that? So even in the kind of, when I think about in the last sort of 9 months, there have been incredible focus on sort of the customer journey within the organization. How do we make sure we're partnering better in terms of providing more resources to the customer and partnering with them, such that we customer kind of view Menlo as a default choice for them when they think of the security. And not only that, as we sort of come up with additional products, they feel more comfortable partnering and buying it from Menlo versus any other sort of competition there, because of the awesome experience they had. And this is where, even when I look in the last sort of 9 months, we're kind of really proud of sort of like our customer retention metrics and the customer expansion metrics that we have had in the last couple of quarters. Have been incredibly strong there. So,
well, curious as to whether, and I'm sure there have been many conversations that continue regarding AI. Are you exploring new ways to incorporate AI into your operations, or how to leverage it perhaps differently?
Absolutely. So, Jack, I'm going to say AI is, when you think about all the threat actors, right? So, I'll talk about the operations, but even from a product point of view, nowadays, the threat actors are using AI to develop, all these attacks, right? So we have to stay ahead of that and say, okay, how do we incorporate AI elements into our product offering to be able to kind of fight all these different attacks there, right? So the team is incredibly kind of focused on that aspect there. But also at the same time, when we look at sort of our key team has been sort of operational efficiency across, and how do we look at all the different sort of offerings that are available in terms of how do they help us sort of become more productive, more efficient across all the organization. So we are kind of looking at, as much as our customers are looking for how do they deploy AI, and they're looking for us to sort of saying how you're incorporating AI into your product. On the operational side, we're doing that on the product side, but also on the operational side, we're also incredibly focused on how do we sort of incorporate and how do we sort of look at all the different sort of AI product that can help us do things better, whether it's in engineering or finance or all the different areas there.
All right. Well, we're up to our finance strategic moment question, where we'll ask you just to share one moment of insight that you've had along the way that led you to, pursue an opportunity, avoid a risk, whatever it may have been. What comes to mind when we ask for a finance strategic moment?
Yeah. So, as I think about sort of my career journey, I mean, so obviously I like I said, I came through public accounting and controllership experience. So, you always kind of thought about sort of the accuracy, and all of the numbers were important, right? But actually, in one of my roles, one of the things the CEO kind of tasked me with this special project that, we have 20 different products that we sell to our customers, right? So I want to understand sort of my margins or my profitability for each product, such that we just want to have that better understanding. And I kind of took the task of sort of saying, okay, I'll lead that project there. And as we sort of started kind of analyzing the numbers there, it became pretty apparent, at least to me, was at that point, is one of the products which we thought was decent sort of size portion of our product was actually generating us the least margins, or actually literally kind of close to sort of not producing any margin for us really. And then the second element that I looked at that was how well are we doing in terms of growth. And we realized yes, we as a company are growing pretty rapidly. We're literally growing 70-80%, but this is one product that's actually dragging down our overall growth, because that is not a growth driver. It's a low margin. And so it was kind of hard part for me. I kind of presented the fact to the management team and the CEO, and everybody kind of were skeptical in the beginning, right? So they thought this was a key product for us, really. But as sort of dialogue happened, kind of we did more research, more analysis, and everybody felt more comfortable. And then we ultimately decided to kind of discontinue or disengage with that product there. And I thought that was sort of good sort of learning outcome for me, is that where finance can play a more strategic role from being just to me, I kind of felt like a turning point where finance is not just about numbers; it's all about strategic thinking as well. By using our sort of financial acumen, and kind of we can uncover these sort of hidden gems there, right? So, like in this case, it really helped us sort of improve our overall growth margin profile for the company, and also growth rate for the company, because this low margin and low sort of growth product, we were able to, by discontinuing that, is sort of improve the overall sort of structure of the company there. And so that kind of solidified my belief that finance professionals can play much more broader kind of role and much more strategic role in shaping the company's future. And sort of, to me, that has sort of become my mantra in sort of how do I, the earlier I talked about simplifying complex issues. The other one is how do I play a strategic role in sort of crystallizing these issues, and how do I partner with others in sort of, simplifying or playing a vital role in the success of the company there.
You know the feeling. A report deadline is looming, and your team is buried in spreadsheets with tasks like bank and payment processor reconciliations, journal entry prep, and cash flow reporting. But what if there was a better way? Ledge automates the tedious work that slows your team down, like high-volume transaction matching, journal entry creation, and even cash flow forecasting. Ledge glues all of your financial data together across your ERP, banks, payment processors, data warehouse, and more, and automates any workflow, no matter how complex or unique to your business. Get real-time cash flow visibility and make cash reporting and forecasting effortless while increasing controls and accuracy. And Ledge requires no IT or R&D resources. Ledge plugs right into your existing stack, so you can get set up in just a few hours. Imagine a world where your team can close the books faster with fewer resources. Imagine audit-ready data all year round. With Ledge, you can finally stop scaling headcount just to keep up with growth. Visit ledge.co. That's ledge.co to learn more about how you can automate your finance operations without the heavy lift. Nice. Thank you for that. We're going to jump to our mentoring round, where we'll ask you several quick questions intended to inform and inspire future finance leaders. What comes to mind? I want you to look back again, and the first time you stepped into a CFO role, as prepared as you were, we know there's some piece of advice you wish someone had given you. And I'm talking about the first 60 days or 90 days after receiving your first CFO appointment. What is that piece of advice, if you could go back in time and give it to yourself? What is it that you would tell yourself?
I think the biggest advice I would tell the role of a CFO is always expect the unexpected, right? So whether I look back at some of my roles, and we one of the companies kind of where when I joined, I'm gonna say it was all about sort of, we were extremely focused on, we were we were growing by 200% every year. And, you're excited to join as a CFO. You're like, yeah, I'm going to help this company kind of continue on this growth trajectory. And lo and behold, kind of a year later, like or 9 months later, we had sort of like literally the world kind of got shut down by COVID, right? So this is where, suddenly kind of your role kind of shifted from being, I feel like it's the role of being a capital allocator, right? So, when I thought about it a year ago, the role of my capital allocation was very different. So certainly, the way we were thinking about the capital allocation suddenly shifted where, cash became a more strategic asset for us, really. So, among other things there. And so just understanding the current sort of the market environment, the market dynamics, the economic environment, and how quickly we're able to pivot in terms of sort of understanding of those metrics or those sort of conditions, really. So in a big way, I would say is really expect the unexpected. And another role kind of really where I thought, okay, we're going to build this company for long-term success and grow, just because we were getting strong interest sort of within 60 to 90, not 60 to 90 days, but at least within sort of a couple of months, the role shifted to now the board like, oh, we are going to hire a banker and let's find a sort of, let's how, get a successful outcome for the company, right? So the company that we thought we're joining for a very different outcome. So suddenly, I'm like, oh, we're game with everything. I'm going to say, oh, I want to help get the best value for the shareholders at that point, right? So the role kind of shifted there. So I feel like, if I, in one word, if I say, or one sentence, if I say is expect the unexpected, right? And be prepared for, or sort of prepared for any of these outcomes or eventualities there.
Great. Thank you for that. We like to ask our guests to reflect a little bit on the personal side. Naresh, we're wondering if there's something that you do that sets you apart from the rest, something maybe your colleagues don't even know. Is there something most people don't know about you? How about one of those?
That's an interesting question. What do I do different from others that sets me apart? The way I would answer this question is what I help for me is I felt like, our job is sort of so much kind of focused on sort of, indoors, where every chance I get sort of to be outdoors, whether it's sort of that helps me kind of balance, right? That helps me kind of think through a lot of the challenges in a clear mind. Like early on sort of in the last sort of decade or so, I wasn't a runner all my life, but in the last sort of 10, 15 years, I've sort of gotten more interested in sort of running and even have been running a few marathons because to me, as part of my practice, if I'm getting up early in the morning and going for my long runs, it helps me sort of clear my mind and sort of think through a lot of times I'm not a huge music listener. So to me, this is like my calm time where I can kind of think about all the different sort of things that needs to happen and really and plan as I'm sort of running or hiking. Kind of this is where it gives me the calm time to kind of think about sort of my day ahead or what I need, what I want to plan for, really. So
Are you disciplined about that? Is that something you do daily, or is it something you got to do 4 times a week, or what kind of regimen?
So I am a pretty disciplined about that. I'm going to say I whether it's I find different hobbies. I'm going to say early on I was running marathons and so forth, but now lately sort of I've shifted to kind of more doing either biking or hiking there, which I felt like it's more. It has a little bit of more social element to that as well versus just running all by yourself there. So I try to do it pretty regularly there.
What about a book recommendation? Anything for us you'd recommend? Or
Absolutely. I'm gonna say I think, when I think about sort of this is what I the couple of books that I have lately. I'm not a reader anymore, but I do listen to a lot of the audio books there. So the 2 books that I more recently read, listened to was one of them was being The Power Law. And the other one was, I find that interesting. That was Freezing Order by Bill Browder. It was more about his Russian experience there. So it was more interesting kind of than learning. But the Power Law was definitely helpful for me in just getting a better understanding of the businesses there. So
excellent. We always love getting a new selection, and we haven't had it. So thank you for that. We're at our final question. We'd like you to look forward for us and share with us your priorities as CFO of Menlo Security for the next 12 months. What are your priorities?
Yeah, so for Menlo, our priorities are, I'm going to say, to think about sort of the 2 big focus areas for us is really, or 3 big focus areas for us is really, we think about it. One is sort of the continued sort of the momentum that we have had, the success we have had in sort of the growth of the company. How do we sort of keep focus on that? And, with sort of the tremendous amount of focus on sort of browser security now, as all the companies are sort of realizing that, even if you have the current sort of security offerings there, the browser still kind of remains the most unprotected area. So how do we secure those? That is kind of a big focus area for us, really. And the second big focus area, I think I kind of briefly touched on that earlier as well, is what I say is the profitable growth there. How do we become more efficient? How do we have extreme focus on KPIs and over operational efficiency KPIs across all areas, such that we can kind of track the measure and the success in all the different areas, not just sort of the top line there, right? So that is sort of, just a good, healthy balance between the two, good, healthy capital allocation. And the third one is really just for us is really, our employees or Melnovians is what we call are the most critical assets for us, really. How do we make sure that we're providing them all the tools necessary, all the sort of help necessary to be successful there?
Naresh Bansal, thank you for joining us on CFO Thought Leader.
Jack, it's my pleasure joining you here today.
Hello, Thought Leader listeners. We hope 2024 is treating you well. If you haven't already, we hope you'll pay a visit to CFOthoughtleader.com and go ahead and subscribe to our Mentoring Round newsletter, where we highlight the career lessons and moments of strategic insight shared by our recent CFO guests. Also, LinkedIn users, please go ahead and follow our CFO Thought Leader company page, and you'll be certain not to miss a single Thought Leader video debut. CFO Thought Leader, the #1 thought leadership platform exclusively for and by CFOs. As always, thank you for listening.